Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Buckle up. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote just for this episode. My superpower is that I love people more than I care about looking stupid. Kyle Draper.
It's good.
Man, the myth, the advisor, the the executive coach, the helper, the healer to those in positions of authority and influence. Kyle Draper is a leader in thought around subjects like servant leadership, business, company culture, organizational growth. He's influenced people that I've met in my forays through the corporate world that are friends of the Culture Matters podcast who sing his praises, like our mutual friend Mark Perkins, the
That's
the
right.
the, the pivoteer, the original pivoter, the original
That's right.
maverick.
Come
Kyle
on.
Draper, not only is he an author and the founder of multiple businesses, but he actually has created a platform for dozens and dozens of authors with this rethink brand, this belief to rethink. We'll talk about and get into. And former pastor turned leader in business and advisor and leader to leaders in business. I'm so excited to introduce you to our audience and understand where you see the puck is going. So
Yeah.
thanks for coming on, Kyle Draper.
Jay, thanks for having me, brother. I'm honored to be here.
I like this idea of servant leadership. I do want to start with that because I have come across those that uh have shared their insights on it, and it seems like often it's like a misunderstandings. There misunderstandings or myths around servant leadership as a student and as a teacher of it, as a liver or embodier
Yeah.
of servant leadership, that you'd say people don't they might misunderstand the idea of what it means to be a servant leader. Or what's your
Yeah.
take on servant leadership?
Well, so I think Jay, most people they view leadership as I grow a team, like I'm growing a team that work for me. And so as they do more, I get to do less. And what I've learned through church ministry and in business is my team works the best when I put it upon myself to serve them. And so me having the ability to check in with my people saying, "Hey, how can I make your life better?" as opposed to, "Hey, here's three more things you can do for me so that my day can be less stressful." I think that's the big piece for servant leadership is am I showing up on behalf of my people to help their day be better
Hmm.
versus am I just dumping stuff on them to help my day be better?
Was there is this something that you had learned from originally mentorship, like physical relationship and spiritual relationship in that way? Was it something from experience, like having learned lessons the hard way? Was it book? You have so many books behind you. I want to talk about all of them. Was it textbook knowledge or what was the call to this to even be attracted to the
Yeah.
idea of servant leadership versus maybe master I don't know if it's the
Yeah.
master dominance, if we were to make an op, right?
Yeah. Man, I think it's both sides. I grew up in an unbelievable family where my parents were wildly successful in business and so they were unbelievable examples of servant leadership, just watching the way they would pour themselves out to people, and I got to watch them do that for 30 years. And but then in the church world, I also had some pretty crappy leaders that made it all about themselves. And so the beauty of life is we can learn from those we want to emulate, but we can also learn from those we want nothing like. And both are equally powerful as examples for us.
Hmm. What would you say in your breadth of experience speaking on stages, working with leaders, being a leader in the church world, as well as seeing a business modeling from strong leadership. Some ways that leaders might be sabotaging their companies, their cultures, their teams without recognizing it. Some ways that they may be sabotaging or undermining
Yeah.
the teams that they have to lead.
I think the first thing is by just they lack communication with their team. I watch a lot of leaders kind of live in their ivory tower, and they've kind of convinced themselves that like my company needs me to always be out in front, always, charting the unknown, when the reality is like the most powerful thing I think a leader could do is take an hour to just walk through the office and just poke your head in people's office and say, hey, right? Like with no agenda. Because I think, and I'm guilty of this too. If the only time I show up to my employee is when I need something of them, they're going to start seeing me down the hall and going, oh, shoot, Kyle's coming. I hope he doesn't come by my office. As opposed to, man, I'm accustomed to Kyle just dropping in and checking in and saying hi and asking about the family. And so I think those little subtle gestures go such a long way, especially from a culture perspective, that I don't just see my boss when I need him. I see my boss regularly because he cares about me.
If there's what core values underlie that? Like if we put it into
Man,
work, because you're the right, you're a writer, you're also writing, publishing, you're
yeah.
thinking words and values, and what
Yep.
values, what core values are that?
So I'll share with you the main one of my higher culture virtual assistant company. Our number one core value is everyone has a purpose and a message to share with others. And so if we truly believe that every single human being has purpose on this earth, we will treat them different. And so we have to have the ability as leaders to see intrinsic value in other people, not just transactional value. I give you money, you give me output for work. But if we truly believe, like here's one of the things that I love, Jay. I love when employees leave my companies to go pursue their dreams. We champion it because I don't want to be the hoarder of good people. I want to be the empowerer of good people, right? Like I want to train people up so that they know we're for you. We're not for you as long as you're for us. We're for you all the time. And man, I think like that's worth its weight in gold when your people genuinely believe if I were to leave, they would celebrate me and champion me on my way out because they love me. They don't just love me while I'm here.
If you, what in your view, what results can come from that philosophy?
Yeah, well, one, I think you end up with employees that want to stay forever, right? Isn't it interesting that like if you tell people you're allowed to leave, they want to stay. But when you try to convince people, do not leave here, there's nothing else better, they immediately want to leave. And it's just like parenting, right? The more I convince my kids you're not allowed to touch that, they touch it. If I'm like, yeah, touch it if you want. It's hot, but touch it if you want. Then they're like, oh no, I'm good. I won't touch it. And so I think that empowerment piece is massive. And I'm gonna butcher the quote, right? But there's a famous quote out there that's like, what if you train them and they leave, but what if you don't train them and they stay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? And so I'm just really big on training people to leave because if that's where their purpose lies, I don't. Not only do I not want to stop them, but I want to be their number one supporter as they do that.
What was the what are some of the observations that you made that led to the conclusion, I'm going to create and found a virtual assistant partner to companies.
Yeah, dude. So 6 years ago, I I had my first like coming out moment as a speaker. I spoke at a massive event. I booked about a dozen speaking gigs all over the US. This is where I met Mark Perkins at this event. And bro, it was November of 19. So I booked all these events and then COVID hit 3 months later and I lost all of them except for Mark.
Whoa.
Mark was like, "Hey, I know this COVID thing's coming, but will you fly into
Oh,
Northern Kentucky anyway?" And
oh.
so everybody was masked up, but I lost all my gigs, and so bro, we are burning through savings, and I have no idea what to do, and so I had taught this concept in my marketing class that I decided to turn into a business. And so my goal was to start this content company and I wanted to use stay-at-home moms as my designers, which felt very noble, but we executed it really bad. And so we were doing the cardinal sin of business. We were over promising and under delivering to every single person. And a buddy of mine, he pulled me aside one day and he said, "Bro, you have the perfect business for virtual assistants." And I said, "What is a virtual assistant?" Well, and so he explains it to me. And so, long story short, I hired my first virtual assistant almost 6 years ago. She's still with me to this day. She runs the Rethink Everything book company. And bro, one turned to two, two turned to four, four turned to 10, 10 turned to 20. And then last year we looked up and we're like, man, why are we not helping other companies do this? Because our ability to leverage VAs has been unbelievable. And so we pivoted the company and went from a marketing company to a remote staffing agency. And bro, it's growing like crazy, and it was the best decision I've ever made, other than
What are
marrying
some
my
of,
wife.
amen, some of the everyday concerns, questions, problems that companies share with you around staffing?
All of them. How do I trust somebody on the other side of the earth? What can I give them a login? Are they going to be as talented as somebody that I could hire here? Right? Am I going to be able to understand them? Do they even speak English? Right? I mean, you name it, and people have the concern. And so we have to work our butts off understanding those concerns because they're all valid concerns to create an unbelievable experience with somebody that you may never meet in real life. It's fascinating.
How about some of the reasons that they're even inquiring in the first place, or even thinking this might be a solution for me? What are some of
Oh,
the problems that businesses are
dude.
facing
So
in the culture, right? Because you're talking about creating a bridge between two cultures.
absolutely. Yep. So the easiest struggle that people have is typically just time, right? People don't have time. And so then they try to hire, but then because they don't have time, they don't really pour into that person enough. So the culture that may have existed before the hire doesn't necessarily transcend because there wasn't training available to that new person. And so that's where we step in and say, "Hey, you've got a job to do. Teach us your culture. Teach us the test, if you love DISC or Myers-Briggs or Strength Finder, right? Whatever assessment helps you tell the story of your business, and then let us come in and love on your new employee from a culture perspective, from a leadership perspective, from an influence perspective." And that's how we bridge the gap. And
Mm.
ultimately, we believe create an even stronger culture than existed before.
What are some facts, figures, or even anecdotal examples of how a virtual, or let's say, what does virtual even mean first?
Yeah. Virtual literally means a real human being in the Philippines that is a staff member of your business that you may never physically meet in real life, but you will be on Zoom with all the time. Right? This isn't AI, right? This is a literal human. And dude, it it's wild to this could be a 4 hour episode if I truly nerd it out with you on the intricacies of this. But it's dude, the minimum wage in the Philippines is under $1. And so when we bring people in and we start them at $5 an hour, to the uneducated person, that sounds like slave labor. But to the educated person, we're creating life-changing opportunity for people on the other side of the world, still living in a third world country, still commuting on dirt roads, living in homes with mud floors sometimes. We're providing unbelievable opportunity. But on top of that, these are men and women that aren't like the bottom feeders of society. Bro, we're putting people in positions that like we're doctors, we're attorneys. My dad owns a construction company, and I just paired him up with a civil engineer in the Philippines that couldn't make enough money as a civil engineer. And now she does all my dad's estimating in his construction business, and she's providing for her family in a way that she's never been able to before. It's incredible.
What are some of the core values that you recognized in that culture that may underlie some of the value creation when those
Yeah,
that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity
bro.
are put into the system into the
Yeah.
system.
The Filipino culture is so incredible because what I believe they do better than anybody is they have unbelievable reverence.
Oh, wow.
You know, they live in a cult, like their culture is all about family. And so for you and I, like I think you're younger than me. I'm 42. And so like in the Philippines, we would not only be responsible for providing for our immediate family, spouse and kids, but our grandparents live with us. Great
Wow.
grandparents might live with us, aunts and uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews. And so their dynamic of family makes them unbelievably reverent, unbelievably loyal, which is why they're my favorite group of people in the world to work with as virtual assistants. Because the minute you get paired with a virtual assistant, Jay, they want to work with you for 40 years. Like they don't see you as like, okay, now I'm with Jay, but what else is over there that I can springboard to from Jay? Like that's the American culture, right? Is I've got to do these 4 jobs to ultimately get to that one. Bro, these people want to be with you forever. And so it's unbelievable. I probably have a dozen VAs that know my credit card numbers. They know my social security number. Like they could ruin my life, my businesses, but there's not an evil bone in their body. That's the way they were raised. And it's why I love them so much. And so those would be the driving factors from a cultural perspective.
How could the organizations that say, "Ah, this is my panacea," unwittingly undermine the value? Example, like I only have 9 ex-girlfriends. I just haven't found the right one yet.
Yeah, yeah,
I haven't yet realized that there are
yeah,
things that I might not be doing or I may be doing. So if we were to have a little bit of an audit, because many of our listeners, not
yeah,
there's international, of course,
yep,
are in domestic in the Western world, maybe asking themselves, how do I find the right person? But what could they be doing unwittingly,
yeah,
client to uh, employ, wherever they are in the world,
yeah.
that could be undermining the ability to get this reverence and loyalty and um, responsibility is something that I hear.
The biggest issue we see happen from the American side is they treat these people as task rabbits. That's the phrase that we use in our business. Is you treat them as a task rabbit. So every morning. And again, I don't think this is done with ill intent, right? But every morning, if the American client just says, "Hey, virtual assistant, here's the four things I need you to do today. I'll see you tomorrow." You're just treating them as a task rabbit. And so what they've got to do different is you've got to treat these people the same way you would treat an employee that was physically in your office. Make them a part of what you guys do. And funny story, Jay, literally last night I saw a calendar. So my executive assistant, his name is Ray. And Ray's in the Philippines, and Ray's an unbelievable dude, incredible husband, amazing father, and he's my assistant. So you would think that he would get a lot of time with me. Well, I run a bunch of businesses. I'm married. I've got three kids, and so I actually I saw an event pop up on my calendar for 8:30 this morning, and I messaged Ray and was like, "Bro, I can't. I'm on a podcast at 8:30 in the morning. I can't jump on." I said, "What do you need?" And he literally responded and said, "I just miss hanging out with you. I just wanted to see you for a few minutes." Bro, that's what people want. They just want a little bit of our attention. And so I think we overthink as leaders, like, ugh, I don't have time to do all this stuff. When the reality is if I would look at Ray for 5 minutes on Zoom so that he knew I valued him today, I cared about him today, I listened to him today, man, that's all people want. And so I'm gonna touch base with Ray later today so he can get some Kyle FaceTime
Right.
because that's what our people need. And that's not rocket
Yeah.
science, is it? Like that's what our wives want, right? Our wives go, "Hello, do you see me?" And I'm like, "I'm listening, but I'm not looking." And man, the eye contact for just a couple of minutes is so powerful. And I think that's the biggest thing that the American company messes up with the VA is that they don't treat them as equal to just look them in the eyes sometimes
Mm.
and have a conversation.
Let's say that they crack that code and the match has been made and the rituals are clear when we meet virtually, when we're getting together physically.
Yeah.
What's the fruit? What type of compounded return can you see?
Oh, bro, the fruit is you end up with an employee that costs you $1,500 a month that's executing what you'd pay somebody 80 or $90,000 a year to do. It's unbelievable. I mean, Jay, most of our VAs, well, no, not most. That's not true. A lot of our VAs, bro, they were pre-med, pre-law in college until they realized I can make more money as an American virtual assistant than I can as a doctor in the Philippines. So these aren't like the people that couldn't cut it. These are the best of the best, the cream of the crop that are realizing that their truest value and worth is coming from working for an American company. And so you're getting a six-figure employee for $18,000 a year. They're worth their weight in gold when
Mm.
they're handled and leveraged correctly.
Mm. How about um, from a where do you see humility as a core value playing into complementing um,
Yeah,
leadership?
bro. My team around me is so freaking smart. And when I was a pastor, my team around me was so freaking smart. But there was a big difference that I can look back on and see when I was a young pastor that grew very arrogant. I didn't care about people's opinions. I just wanted them to validate mine. Now, 42-year-old leader Kyle, I couldn't give two craps about my opinion. I don't care if I'm ever right. I want my company and my team to win. And so for me, like humility is everything. because if I didn't have humility, I would be buried by my arrogance because I'm not smart enough to run these companies. And so without it, humility to me is like the X factor because humility is also what we have to tap into when we need to learn something new. But if we don't have any humility, we don't think we need to learn anything because I'm already doing great the way that I am. And so for me, humility is everything.
Social media played a role in opportunities coming to you, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time.
In your view, as a tenured leverager to build your companies, to build your brand, to lead to coaching and consulting businesses on staffing, that's all the fruit. Where in the journey of social platforms becoming value creating for the individual, the organization, versus value undermining, whether intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah.
What's your sage, your wisdom on how to leverage them
Yeah.
without without losing oneself? I think Soren
Bro.
Kierkegaard,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, he said it'll maybe it won't come to me.
Maybe
All
it
of a sudden
won't.
I thought about, yeah, maybe it won't actually come, but I thought about the great Soren Kierkegaard, the Socrates of Christendom. It said something about or no, Nietzsche said life is too something the, there is no price to pay that's greater than the privilege of owning yourself.
It's good.
So, what opportunity does the self have through
Yeah.
these platforms, but also where can we take it in the wrong direction?
Oh man. So if we're not careful, social media is driven by ego, right? The dopamine hits on social are real. The ding every time a like comes through, a comment, a share, right? At each 1,000 views, we puff our chests out a little bit bigger and we feel a little bit cooler. And so the danger of social is that you let your ego drive the bus. And so all your decisions that you make are based on ego. How do I go viral? How do I get more followers? How like all that, none of that makes you more money. All of that makes you more egotistical and more of a narcissist. And so the line in the sand moment for me was when I realized I don't need to know more people to be more successful. I
Mm.
already know enough people. I just need to be more top of mind to all the people I already know. And so now, Jay, that allows me to create a video, for example. And if that video gets 90 views, I'm not going to go bury my head in the sand and be a big baby about it because I just need one of the right people to see that video to turn into opportunity. And so if we'll realize that we don't need a ton of people to be more successful, it takes all the pressure away from showing up online. And I just show up in a way to add value. I don't show up in a way to get accolades and pats on the back. It's not about me. I use it as a vehicle to serve people. And bro, when that switch flips, it's an absolute game changer. And that though has been the hardest thing for me to help people get over is it's just such a great dopamine hit for the ego. And so until you start to have some self-control over yourself, you know, a dog will return to its vomit. And that is social media for most people.
Where hmm, what are your thoughts on here's something I recognized when I so content, right? Getting in front of speaking on a topic.
Yep.
Okay, people may be watching, but until I call them, I won't know.
Yeah.
So going back to your like the network effect.
Yep.
I didn't until I recognized that I got a call. Hey Kyle, how are you doing? What's going on? Oh yeah, I loved your last video.
Right.
It may not have said anything,
Yeah.
You may not have commented, but what is this term? What are your thoughts on the
Bro,
term
I so I
micro influencer? It's
so
like,
I call exactly what you're saying. I call shadow people. There are men and women, right? So let's say that my video got 140 views, but it only had 3 comments. And so now I think I'm a loser because only 3 people commented, only 140 people saw it. Bro, those 140 people, man, they're lurkers. They didn't want you to know they were there, but they're there. And bro, what I love about the lurkers are the best people because when the lurkers step into the light, they come with their money. And it never fails. Just what you said, right? I'll reach out to, like, I'll talk to somebody and they'll be like, man, I've been watching your videos. I'm like, you have? I've never seen you in my notifications. Well, like I just watch. I don't participate. And so, dude, there are people watching that at some point, if we'll stay consistent and not let ego ruin it, bro, it's gonna turn into money.
I want to speak. Maybe this is the open loop for part two because you have a theological background, but I'd love to go into the identity, the psychology, the
Yeah,
theology of it in the sense that I would argue, I like your thoughts on this, that let's say the automation, the let's say those that do comment, they do like they're clearly watching. They can be put into a funnel and that automates the relational process. By the time we do talk, there's really nothing that I need to share or they're going to ask.
right.
They've already made a decision in their mind that I'm their panacea, or there's a degree of adoration, worship,
Yeah. Yep.
which you don't want to take too far. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
now, and this is where the core values of the person in a position of authority, they're shaped with the struggle. They're shaped in the no. They're shaped if bad things aren't if bad things aren't happening to me or things I don't perceive as bad or some combination. Where is the where are the consequences that lead to the humility, right? Job.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, like, if I'm not reaching out, I'm not doing the humble acts. So because the marketing system can be set up to such a degree
Yeah.
that I'm only getting laydowns, even the sales that don't lead to a sale, they're still a laydown, meaning they're not throwing stones at me
Yeah, yeah.
unless I'm really aggressive. There's no
Yeah.
real challenge to my spirit. I know
Yeah.
this is like a maybe more esoteric, but I love your thoughts on that. Essentially, the core values of the person in position of authority that has a product, a service offering, are built in the struggle, in the resistance,
Yeah.
in the conversation.
Yeah.
I don't get everything I want, but the social platforms and the idolatry that comes from the influence and all of those bias is lower the threshold of pain of the
Yeah.
product. So, what are your thoughts? Or
Man, I for most business people that I know that I would say are men and women of humility that are incredible leaders, I I think their big struggle that taught them that happened far before they probably were ever in sales. And maybe not, right? For some people, like they just need the like I'm not a cold caller. I don't cold call people. That's not the way, I want to run my business. That's not what I enjoy doing most days. But all leaders probably have a story. Like I can point back to a literal moment when everything changed for me from a humility perspective. Like a singular moment in time. And now that was 12 years ago, right? And so um everything I do now, every decision I make stems from what I experienced in that moment of embarrassment, guilt, anxiety, frustration, fear, um, resentment. And so I think that's the what we're talking about, right? Is every leader has to have that moment, that line in the sand, but then it should be our goal, man, to try to help as many people as we can avoid that moment for themselves, right? Because if I would have listened to people before me, I wouldn't have necessarily had to experience that. Unfortunately, experience is usually our greatest teacher, and it's both really painful and really enjoyable at times. But man, like that's it for me. Um, I don't know if pain has to come in the literal sales process. Maybe it does for some people. And I guess it did for me. Now you're pulling things out of me that like I hadn't even thought about. Like I remember getting into roofing, and I door knocked for a year. Dude, you talk about crap. Door knocking is the worst. But you learn a lot about yourself when you force yourself into that experience. And so that was true for me. That sales was one of the drivers in helping me learn and grow into the leader that I am today.
Be open-minded to alternatives in staffing. Treat people with respect and dignity, not task rabbits. Be willing to rethink one's business model, strategy,
There you go.
operating blueprint at any given time. Kyle Draper, how can people get in touch with you, follow you, connect with you the fastest to be a part of your world? Maybe they want to bring you into their organization to speak to their
Sure.
people. Maybe they want to partner from an employment standpoint. They want to be involved with one of your books.
Yeah, I'm Coach Kyle Draper on all social platforms, and my website's kyledraper.com, so I'm pretty easy to find. And I'd love to talk to anybody.
Kyle, I believe that when you say it. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm excited for next time already. If you're listening to this episode of the Culture Matters podcast, um, share this with somebody that you care about. Please
Please.
follow our friend Kyle, and we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Thank you, my friend.